I think youth sports, as good as it's been for some, has been terrifying for others. I think it's done more to destroy kids than it has to help them. It has destroyed their self-worth. They have created more self-doubt. We as coaches have approached it so wrong, but we are in the society of rush. Rush to play games, rush to win games, rush to win the championship, rush to get on that travel team, rush. And it does more to hurt the development of the athlete than anything else. I mean, there's other things, believe me, and we'll probably touch upon those. But my assistant comes in and she's like, Pete Carroll's on the phone, wants to talk to you. Now, he was with the Patriots at the time, and I'm a huge New England Patriots fan. I'm like, get out of here. It's my friend. It's like, that's a joke.
Find and learn from people who lived it wherever you get podcasts. Search it using all one word. Learn from people who lived it.
Welcome to another episode of Learn from People Who Lived It.
Welcome to the show. This is going to be one of those episodes that's a little different from the others, but in a very intentional way. Most of you guys know that I've been a youth hockey coach for a long time, and I'm so passionate about youth sports. And the guy that we're going to sit down and spend some time with today, Scott Lancaster, shares that energy. He too loves being around young athletes and helping them out, mind, body, spirit, whatever he can do to improve their performance and their state of mind. And you've written several books, Scott. You've been on the radio like I've been on the radio. Welcome to Learn from People Who Lived It. How are you?
Thanks for having me. This is exciting. It's a pleasure to be here.
Yeah, buddy. I'm so excited to have you on today because I'm so passionate about youth sports, just like you are. And I think one of the things that I would love to do today, if we can set an intention for our show today, would be that parents who listen to this podcast walk away with a renewed sense of how they might act when they're around their kids in that area of youth sports.
True. Yeah, that's a very important part of it. And I don't think people really take a step back and look at it that way. So it's good for everybody to reanalyze when you're in the middle of the forest, it's hard to see the trees, right? That's true. Same thing in youth sports. Everything's based on winning. Everything's based on the competition, not necessarily in the good way to get better and to improve, but to win a game, which is totally useful in the whole scheme of life.
Yeah. Cool, man. Well, yeah, and listen, I don't want you to think that I'm up here all high and mighty. I've made my mistakes along the way. The difference is that I learned from them and now I do different things because I'm seeing the benefit of them. Man, you've been involved with a lot of exciting things. For folks that don't know you, explain your involvement with the NFL. That's kind of a neat story.
Sure. Quite a few years back, I was working in soccer, worked for U.S. Soccer. This is way back when soccer was not at the level of popularity that it is today.
Ted Lasso hadn't come out yet.
No, it hadn't come out yet. But you know what? That's the long-running joke of soccer. It's always about to happen. It's always about to happen. And this is back, I can take you back to the 80s, and that was a high fever pitch. It's about to happen. Wow. Nobody believed it. Everybody thought it was a communist sport, and that's the way it was going to be. You know, it wasn't an American sport. You don't use your feet as an American athlete. That was their whole thing. And I heard a lot of that at the NFL. Believe me, I could tell you stories. But I was working there, and we did a lot to improve participation. But I had the opportunity. I was blessed to have the opportunity to work in any area I wanted to within marketing and development of players and coaches. So I chose the U.S. Women's National Team. Now, they hadn't won anything yet, but I saw it as they were a better team. So I'm like, I'm not stupid. I'm going to go with the athletes that are more likely to succeed. And there was a great need. I saw female athletes that really needed to have some guidance and more equal representation in the sport and to be able to grow it. So I made it my mission to help grow the female side of soccer, youth soccer. And in relationship to that, it helped improve all aspects of it. And that was coaching, and that was playing. And I've always come from an angle of doing things differently. No, don't go by the status quo. Don't do it because it worked before, because if it's working now, it probably won't work in the future. So you got to always be working at 2.0, 3.0, rather than constantly being at 1.0. And that's how sports has been for years. years. And so I take the approach that we need to advance whatever we're doing and be more progressive in our approach. So girls was the way to go back then. Now if you speak about it, it's like it's huge. With the Women's World Cup coming up this summer, it's just huge. And it has really taken off. So I had the great pleasure when I was working there to work with the U.S. Women's National Team, and I worked with Mia Hamm, and I worked with that group that won the World Cup in '91, and then won the Olympics in '96, and spent a lot of time with them. I toured them around the country, getting in front of girls, introducing them to this group of star athletes, which were the modest group of athletes I've ever worked with, and they really impressed me. They impressed everybody we brought them out to, but they're great athletes. And so we created this bond with the team, specifically with Mia, who is just a great person, not only a great athlete, but a great person, and one of the most modest people you will ever meet. But that was the character of the team, too. They were very, very much like, we don't deserve this, really. We're here because we're fortunate to be here. We work hard at it, but you know what? We're not going to let it go to our heads, and they didn't. And I think that was really a beauty of that team. They really, really embodied what a pure athlete should be from both their athletic, physical accomplishments and the way they approach the game mentally. They were really great. So during that, I was noticed by somebody at the NFL who was just coming on, who was also another sort of pioneer joining the NFL as a female. She became the president of NFL Properties, the marketing arm. And she reached out and wanted to talk to me about how I increased the participation in soccer and how they could do it in football, which was having a huge problem. The huge problem was that participation had fallen off or had never really grown to the levels they wanted to as they looked at other sports such as soccer or baseball or basketball.
Well, and I'm guessing this comes probably around the time that we're having a lot more discussions around concussions and tackling and some of that stuff. And that makes sense to me. I think this sounds like that time frame.
Yeah, it was that time frame was 1995. I started at the NFL. I'm really dating myself, but yeah, I started back in 1995, and so the moms did not want their kids to play tackle football. Sure. So they brought me on to figure out ways to change that and how to increase participation with that big obstacle in the way. And so, I was met with challenges from the NFL owners. I reported directly to Roger Goodell on a lot of this stuff before he was commissioner, and I worked with Tagliabue as well, but I worked with Roger a lot on this stuff, reporting to him. And then I developed with a group. When you have access to the NFL, that's like being in the playground of everybody picks up the phone. Everybody picks up the phone. Exactly. So my first day there, they came into my Don Garber, who's the commissioner at Major League Soccer right now, was my first boss who actually hired me at the NFL. Wow. So he comes into my office and throws an airline ticket on my desk and goes, "You're going to San Francisco tomorrow to meet with somebody. I don't know if you know him, but his name is Bill Walsh." And I'm like, "Oh my God, like that's the wizard of coaching, a wizard of coaching football." So I flew out there, and that became a 10-year relationship that I had with the guy. He became like my grandfather. He really sort of he mentored me. And he always said, what you're about to do is not going to be easy. It's hard to work within the confines of the NFL and football, which is so like cemented in their beliefs of what football should be, and men are men, and whatever that was. But he was incredibly right. He couldn't have been more right. And he said, whatever you do, don't ever, hesitate to do what you think is right. And he said, I'm here for you to bounce things off, but go with your gut, because I think you're coming from an angle that I think this game needs.
Oh, and amazing, man.
It was. And he introduced me then to Pete Carroll, who was with New England at the time. I mean, I had access to a lot of these guys, but one day I'm in my office, and my assistant comes in, and she's like, "Pete Carroll's on the phone, wants to talk to you." Now, he was with the Patriots at the time, and I'm a huge New England Patriots fan. I'm like, "Get out of here. It's my friend." That's a joke. I go, I'll get back to him, get his number. She's like, I think it's Pete Carroll. I go, get his number and come back in here. And soon it was the Patriots number. I'm like, oh my God. So I pick up, he's like, "Hey, it's Pete." And it's just like,
was he chewing gum?
Yeah. Yeah, you could hear it. But yeah, his mind's going 100 miles an hour. He goes, I want to talk to you about youth football. It's really a passion of mine. We got to get, I want to be involved. How can I help? And he helped me a lot in some of the programs I put together. So that's, we did a lot in player development by changing things up, and coaching development, because obviously the two parallel paths. And I ran into a lot of obstacles because people just didn't believe it, because they knew I was from soccer. So they immediately walked in the room saying, this isn't going to work. But I was able to convince them. So it was a long path, but a very, I would say, rewarding path. I learned a lot from it. I loved working there, because every day you walk through those doors on Park Avenue, you learn something, and you had to really strive to accomplish things, because I did have my back against the wall, because I had come from the world of soccer, and I was going about the way we teach the game of football and play the game of football differently. I looked at alternatives, because I said, listen, guys, why I'm saying this is not that you've done it wrong, but the world has changed, and we need to approach the game differently, because a lot of people are saying we're not going to play the game, and eventually those TV ratings are going to go down. And once you talk about money at the NFL, that you're going to lose money, everybody props up and says, "Oh, okay, what do you got?" So that's how I caught their attention, and we did some pretty cool things while we were there.
I like this, man, from so many different places. I love that they have the long-term vision to understand that the youth athletes of today are going to be the future NFLers of tomorrow. And so there's a lot of, it's smart to invest in them. There's a couple of other themes that you explained along the way that I think are worth pointing out too. You talk a lot about being humble. I had an opportunity to work with Mia Hamm in Washington, D.C. one time at a big ass soccer event where we gave away a car to somebody or something like that.
Okay.
And that was my experience too. She was just incredibly warm and just grounded. And it was almost like she was the neighbor from down the street coming over to be as respectful as she could to do whatever needed to be done. Right. Like that whole experience was neat. I wonder if you will, or do ever look back on the last 20 years of your life and all these cool people, because you and I both know, man, like not everybody gets to take a call from Pete Carroll. Not everybody gets to work with Mia Hamm. You ever just look back and go, how cool, how flippin' amazing was that?
Pinch myself. Yeah. I mean, I think the best experience of all those experiences are great, but the best was sitting in Bill Walsh's office and brainstorming. And sometimes I'd have to stop then and go, I can't believe I'm here. I can't believe I'm doing this. We're not talking about the West Coast offense, but we're talking about how to make change in other ways. And he would come to New York. We'd spend time, go to dinner. I'd take him to my programs and have him see them along with Pete. Pete would come as well. And it was just learning more about them. Pete and I would stay up for hours in hotel rooms and just talk about not football, actually. It was about the learning process, how people sort of absorb things and how they learn, how to become better learners and how to become better communicators and better teachers. And that's what a coach is, and getting my perspective, his perspective from his mentors, that sort of thing. And that became so valuable in the programs we developed. And to this day, I still take those. He introduced me to, I'm sure you know this book, The Inner Game of Tennis. And
no, but I'm going to write it down right now. What is it?
Inner Game of Tennis. Okay. Tim Gallway's the author. Okay, it's been around for their 50th anniversary is coming up from the first back in the 70s when it was published.
Okay.
It is when you talked about before we got on, we talked about the mental side of sports, the mental side of the game. Right. This is all about that.
Okay,
and
cool.
He's a tennis guy, and he had Pete introduced me to the guy that would explore and would teach the inner game around the country, who was also a tennis player. He was he was one of the top ranked guys at USC when he played. It was ranked in the top 100 at one point. His name was Sean Brawley, and to this day we still talk. And he introduced me to the inner game, and the inner game being, as briefly as I can sort of explain it, is that we all have a self one, who is the critical mind, the judgmental mind, is the mind that will set you back because if you make a mistake, your mind's like, you suck, you shouldn't be doing this, just quit. Why did you do that? And so it's constant. And most of us walk around our lives with that self-talk in our mind. And it's hard to overcome it because you've got it so ingrained in your head. And then there's self two, which is your more positive mind, the open-mindedness of looking at something and non-judgmental and just let it go. And more about the flow. More like, how did that feel, rather than dissecting something you just did and just like really focusing on the negative. And then that, I'm not doing it justice, but that's, in a brief sense, that's what the two things are about: developing self two rather than self one. And so I started to incorporate it into my own coaching, because I'm a performance coach as well. And over the last, I'd say 5 years, I've had so much more success by using the inner game methodology than anything else I've ever used, because athletes relate to it. It's not command-based instruction. It's more of, we are a team working together to improve you, the athlete and the coach together. And I'm not all-knowing. You as the athlete know more than I do in a lot of respects. So how do we bring out all those things that you're very good at? And I don't care if you're just starting at something.
Love that, man. Yes.
Yeah, it's so important, especially for a kid to hear that. Right. Like, you're really good at this, but let's find out how to bring more of that out of you, and how to take away that voice in your head that keeps questioning you, and the negative things that you can't do this, rather than just listen to your body. And it's just, getting into, it's more about learning how to do things in a rhythmic method. So if you're trying to hit a tennis ball, Tim Galloway developed this system where it was called bounce hit. So rather than thinking about, I got to create a top spin, I got to get my racket back this far, it just drives you crazy. You can't really execute if you're thinking all those things. So He simplified it and said, hey, all I want you to do, and I've seen this happen. I've seen it with my friend Sean do it. Getting people out on the court that've never played the game of tennis before, and they start rallying, like 50 consecutive rallies on the court, and they've never hit a tennis ball before. How is that? Well, they do this exercise called bounce hit, and they just say, all I want you to do is every time the ball hits the court, you yell out bounce. Every time it's about to hit your opponent's racket, you yell out hit. When it comes on your side, you do the same thing, and you create this rhythm. And you start, and you don't think about what you're doing. It just, all your natural abilities come out. And it's just fascinating. And you can apply that to so many things in sports, where you just calm your nerves. It's an empty mind aspect comes in. And now you're just learning and absorbing rather than analyzing and judging yourself. So that's the inner game in the quickest way I can explain it.
Yeah, no. That's a beautiful concept, man. And it's so fantastic to hear other people using the same language I am with my athletes. My kids will hear me say, just be athletic. Like, just let all the mechanics go and just do what you do, especially when we're golfing. It's like, stop thinking about all of the things, man, and just swing and hit the ball. And it is just a rhythmic. You're absolutely right on that. I want to move us into the area of youth sports, because we promised an intention of kind of like helping parents be better with their kids. And one of the things that I really struggle with in hockey, and I won't even just pigeonhole it to hockey. I think this problem relates in any home where the kids play the same sport mom and dad did growing up. And so mom and dad have a pretty good base on what's supposed to happen. And then here's my crazy theory, Scott. Most of us, we grow up and we have coaches. And by the time we get to about high school or something like that, that's kind of our last experience. And, we go off to college and we do other things. We kind of set the sport down. And so the last memory we have of coaching is when we were like a teenager. And things were a little harder. They could be a little bit more intense because their age is such where they could handle small doses of that. But then they bring that to the 8-year-old, to the 6-year-old, to the 10-year-old, and that mind isn't ready for that sequence yet. So what are you telling people to help them understand that?
Okay, there are different stages of learning, and there's educational models that will take people through that. But in sport, you have to understand as you approach it as an adult and as a coach that a 6-year-old can't do what an 8-year-old can do. An 8-year-old can't do what a 10-year-old can do. You have to make it age appropriate, and you have to, but we are in the society of rush. Rush to play games, rush to win games, rush to win the championship, rush to get on that travel team, rush. And it does more to hurt the development of the athlete than anything else. I mean, there's other things, believe me, and we'll probably touch upon those. But this rush to win, this rush to advance them before they're ready is maddening to me. Now, sometimes I can come across as being very critical of youth coaches and critical of youth sports and that sort of thing. And there's plenty to be critical about. But I think overall, youth sports is a great thing. I think overall youth coaches are doing a great service. I just think there needs to be adjustments made in how we approach kids. And one of them is understanding who you're coaching and what they can do and what they can't do. And the expectations going in have to be lowered, but not in a way that the kid knows it, only in the way in your mind so you don't make the mistakes that a lot of people make and push them too hard.
Yeah, I don't mind you being critical at all. I consider myself a little critical too, because it's time for change. No, and I know you're chuckling because we're getting along, but it really is. I'm so sick and tired of these old school men and women who are showing up to coach kids who have they don't understand. And I should share a short story with you, Scott. So I grew up in Minnesota, like I said, and I was a hockey player, and I was a decent hockey player. I was tall. I had a good reach. I played defense. I could poke check. I mean, I had a decent skill set. And by the time I got to 9th grade, I was a starting defenseman for our varsity hockey team. And I played for a monster. Scott. This guy was ugly in every sense of the word. I mean, the words he used, the way he treated people. If you weren't on his top 2 lines, he could hardly give a shit about you. And he let you know about it, right? And during the games too. During the games, he would utter out things like, what is your plus minus now at -30? This kind of language is happening during the games. And so the way that I approach youth sports now is I'm going to be the coach that I needed when I was in 9th grade. Yep. I'm going to make sure that that's how we do things moving forward. The problem that we kind of run into with all of this is, how do you do a big sweep, or how do you educate these guys and girls who are willing to come to this new side of things and convince them that this is where it's going to be better?
Well, I think we're in a good time and space in society right now because it's a mess out there. Let's face it.
Sure. We're figuring it out.
and kids are at the center of suffering from that, and they're seeing all this crap go on, right? And now it's in the sports world as well, and they're faced with it every day at school, and they bring it to the field. Because I'm a high school coach, I see it, and it's maddening sometimes. Right. But and I've said this to other people, and now that you said it, now I'm relieved that I can be a little more negative.
We have to say it the way it is, man.
Yeah, the gloves are off now in a hockey term. Now, but you know what? I think youth sports, as good as it's been for some, has been terrifying for others. I think it's done more to destroy kids than it has to help them. It has destroyed their self-worth. They have created more self-doubt. We as coaches have approached it so wrong that we are now we've damaged a lot of kids. And we'll never know it because these kids aren't going to walk around with crutches because they've been mentally, destroyed. They're not going to have bandages on their head because they're mentally destroyed. So we don't know till later in life, and they don't know it till later in life, and they carry this on. So I think youth sports could be the biggest provoker of mental illness out there. They certainly
like it.
They certainly accelerate it if it's there, and then they hear it at home. And what does mom and dad do at home? They just jump on more. They jump on you. Like, why did you do that? That car ride home is terrifying for some kids. They're just just shut up. I mean, you're not out on that field. You don't know what I'm going through. And they shut the kid down, and then the kid doesn't want to talk. And so I think there's a lot to learn from how we act in youth sports and how we coach in youth sports. And that is closely related to how we parent. And it's scary. And I think, taking the approach that you're working with a human being that really wants to learn. When they first come into, let's take all this stage back all the way when you're learning to walk. Okay.
Yeah. Right.
That's the purest, best time for a kid in their life, right? Because no one's telling you how to walk. No one's throwing all these instructions at you. They just put you on your feet and you just keep doing it. You fail, you get up. You fail,
and they encourage the hell out of you, man.
Yeah. And the kid's laughing and they're trying to get, and they're so like, they have so much drive to walk, but it's not overcome by this, do this, do that, do this, do that. Oh, how could you have done that? Why did you fall? You're such a failure. Nobody does that, but the acceleration of that skill just skyrockets. So what do we learn from that? That's something to learn from. And as coaches, we've got to think of it that way. And we overburden kids with instruction. We overburden them with negativity in the way we address them. So that's basically.
Man, I wish I could turn the volume up on you so loud so that other people would have to hear. One of my favorite things I ever learned in a coaching session. One of the guys who was an instructor, he was talking about coaches that yell and scream and are constantly shouting out instructions all the time. And he was like, "Are you teaching them to be a good listener?
Right?
Is that what you think you're doing?" Because that's what your actions say. Your actions say you're just trying to get them to listen to you. No.
When in fact,
teach them how to play the game.
The listener. The coach should be the listener. The coach should be asking the questions and trying to get answers. So you're right.
And I want to put a little bit, but I want to put a little meat on the bones of something you just said a second ago too, Scott. I do a lot surrounding mental health and mental wellness now. And one of the most passionate areas of that is something that they refer to as inner child wounds. These are the these are the wounds that we get on the way up based on some of our experiences and things like that. And the experts are really, 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 let me say really clear about how we can fuck our kids up. And I'm going to be that blunt. Shaming and teasing are the top two on the list. And I have yet to be in a locker room where I don't see that and experience that. And so what you said earlier about its contribution to mental health and wellness, you're absolutely on the mark, because kids are receiving deep inner child wounds inside these locker rooms, on the benches, and they are literally starting to develop a story in their head about who they are, what value they bring to a situation. All of those things are happening in those teenage years. That's why it's so important to get this right.
It is. It's vital. And you know what? It happens, and we all think that sports is wholesome, right? That this is where you learn, and this is where you grow, and this is how you can problem solve and all that. When, yes, that does happen. And when you run into, fortunately, a good coach, it will happen. It's because there's great situations that arise in sports that you can use as examples, as really strong reinforcing examples and lessons. But there's also that side, the dark side, that is just pummeling kids. And they walk away, and they all ask, why do so many kids quit sports? Why do 75% of kids quit sports by the age of 12? Well, duh. Yeah. It's the way we treat them. It's the way this isn't fun. This is a job for them. And you know what? That just follows them through life. And then when they have a bad experience, say on the job, they relate it back to that sports experience when they were on the bench, when they were benched for they didn't know why, or because they were.
And can I just interrupt and say, and conversely, so does the other stuff. When they have the wins, when they feel the value, when they feel included, when they feel like they've made an amazing contribution, that also comes with them. Yeah, go ahead.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, hopefully it reinforces good things in them, but there's so many negative things to tear away that I don't even want to imagine how many kids have been damaged that would have achieved even greater things in their lives if it weren't for youth sports. And I think that's what we're up against. I think people may look at this and go, you're crazy. The youth sports is great. It worked for my kid. Do you really know that? Do you really know that worked for your child? I don't know if you know that. There are times in sports that have been, the structure of sports needs to change. And I always say this, kids should not play adult games. Adult games are not designed for kids. And that's where we run into trouble. Okay, we got to play 9 innings, 3 outs, 3 strikes, 4 balls.
Right.
We got to, in baseball, we got to do all that. We got to play on a full rink of hockey as soon as possible. We've got to do all the things the adult does because I want to be entertained as an adult, like I'm watching a pro game, which is absolutely is ludicrous.
It's ridiculous.
What it is.
Right.
Yes. Yeah.
And hockey was one of the worst offenders. We didn't come to the table and fix this until like a dozen years ago.
Yeah, I think everybody has. I mean, soccer came that way too. Baseball still hasn't come that way. I mean, it's still a very difficult game for kids to play, and they could make it simpler, and they could make it more entertaining, and develop better baseball players if they did it differently. I'm a big proponent. I think the sport that gets it right, or the athletes that get it right, which I think are the best athletes in the world, that are looked down upon a lot as potheads and all that type of stuff, which in essence they're not. I think they're incredible athletes, are action sport athletes.
Yeah,
the skateboarders.
I kind of thought you might say that.
Skateboarders, surfers, BMX riders, those athletes will work for hours, if not years, on one particular aspect of a trick without a coach. What does that tell you? Right. What does that tell you? You know, and they don't need a scoreboard. They don't need to look up and say, "Oh, I got this record. I'm a winner today. I lost yesterday." No, every day is a new adventure for them. And if those little small victories of doing something a little bit better the next day is glorious for them. Wouldn't it be nice if all sports were based on that? Wouldn't it be nice if baseball, football, basketball, soccer was a half pipe, where everybody goes, a community feeling, where there are no coaches, and you work with your peers, and you just do it, and you're all working together to have fun. And you're like, oh, my God, that was awesome. When you go to a half pipe sometime and watch those kids, either on a ski slope or on a skate park, they work together, and they have this common bond. And there's no adults in sight, which is, for them, a relief and an escape. And it's sad at the same time.
Yeah, but buddy, you go and you watch, like, to echo your statement, I've been there before, and they're encouraging. Nobody's roasting on each other. No. Like, they're all kind of like, oh, dude, almost, man. There's all kinds of encouragement happening. Yeah. And I mean, shit, I coached a team last year. We had a disaster on the bench in 3 or 4 games where the kids are at each other's throats because one kid's not doing what they're supposed to do. And I think it's worth saying, and I want to get your thoughts on this, Scott. Youth sports does work if you're on the first line or you're one of the 3 best kids on the team. Yeah.
Right? Yeah. Okay. That's awesome. It's an awesome experience.
It's amazing, bro.
And your parents are talking about it at the country club. They're talking about it in their coffee at work. They're just so proud. They're so proud. But what about there's so many more that don't have that opportunity because it's not afforded to them. So but there's so much that has been accomplished that they don't recognize and they don't bring up. And everybody wants to know what the score was. Did you win or lose? And it's just the wrong questions to ask. That's all. All
right. So we beat people up a little bit. Let's maybe head down the lane of like, what could we start getting right? And then I think where we have to start is by maybe going back to the psychology of sports a little bit, and in hockey, what we call the level of trainability or the age of trainability. There's some phrase that they have within USA Hockey where they talk about this between this age group is this, between is this age group is this, and then when you get a little older, you can introduce these types of things. So what could we start doing better as parents, and then maybe we'll talk to coaches?
I think restructuring. In all my books, I talk about this, restructuring the way you play and compete, and even the way you practice. There shouldn't be any distinguishing between practice and games. I think every practice should be full of competitions, like fun, fulfilling competitions, sort of like skateboarding and surfing and that sort of thing. Bringing that mentality to it, where fundamentals are the focus and you're just trying to get better at it. And it's not trying to get one soul. So take away the scoreboard. And I know that's just, everybody uses that. We don't need the scoreboard. But in essence, though, live it by that. Really cherish and celebrate mistakes. Celebrate the failures as well. So what? You missed a ground ball. No big deal. You know what you just did? You learned something through that. And so reorganizing how we address and structure youth sports from practice to games. I don't think kids should be playing games. I know over in Europe, they don't start playing organized games until sometimes 15 years old, 16 years old, when they're ready, when they're mentally ready. Yeah, where they're developed, where they can actually sort of execute the skills might be where you want them to be, where they've made executing skills a good thing, a fun thing. So kids like to go to practice. Kids hate practice because coaches can't come up with good things to do with them to make it fun.
Say it again, Scott. Say it again.
So that's what I'm saying. Practice should be fun. Games should be fun, but we should do them differently. We should do it with different scoreboards, different scorecards, different ways of accomplishing things. They're not wins and losses. They're accomplishments, or they're learning experiences. So this win-lose thing has got to end if we're going to change youth sports. I know it's difficult because we're so mindseted on, especially Americans, did you win? Did you win? And everything's based on that. Whereas if you ask pro athletes that, they're like, I wish I didn't have to go through that as a kid. That would have been awesome for me. But if you talk to Bill Walsh, if you had the opportunity to talk to Bill Walsh, you talk to Pete Carroll, they do things that are fun. They do things even at the pro level to make it. To engage them. You want to engage them in the process. You don't want to torture them. You don't want to be like you're going to work and you're a drill sergeant telling them what to do. Let them have it at it. That's what I
always say to parents, instead of saying, did you guys win? I say, how'd you play? How'd you guys play? Mm-hmm. How'd you guys play today? How'd the game go? You know what I mean? Yeah. And there's a little bit more room for an answer there.
That car ride home is so important, how you address it. And it's more like, did you have fun today? What did you learn today? What was learned today? What did you think you accomplished? What do you think the team accomplished? What do you think you have to work on? That sort of thing.
Yeah, I don't know how to get dads to stop having that bad conversation on the way home. Like, I don't know why they feel the need to punish and beat up. But I mean, I have, and you probably seen this too, Scott. And I get kids, they show up in the locker room and their dad's like, what's taking you so long to get out of the locker room? And I'm thinking, because as soon as he leaves here, he has to hang out with you.
It's true. We've heard stories of kids that have said, this is on the dark side, but have said, I actually dream of my father and I driving to a game and getting in an accident and being hurt so badly we have to spend time in the hospital, but we get time together alone where we don't have to talk sports. We just talk about life. And we can talk about how lucky we are that we survived this. That's a kid saying that. It's sad, but it's so revealing of where we've gone. And if a parent can hear that, could hear their child say that, it'd be quite a wake-up call, I think, that you're focusing on the wrong things.
So what's the balance then between backing off a little bit to understand where they are and what they need, while also making sure we're developing them to get to the next stage, to get to the next step? Because, that's worth talking about.
Yeah. You want to build resilient kids. You want to make sure that they understand how to lose. Because you lose most of the time in life, right? You're always battling, not to, but that's trying to, again, I think it goes back to redefining how we make the experience. Like we're so set on win-loss, achieve, not achieve. It's like, no, there's an in-between. There's a learning process. Maybe it should be not yet. Like grades, I heard there was a school, I don't know where it was. They were grading and they went off the non-traditional grading thing, which sometimes I'm like, oh my God, here we go. No, I don't want to do that. But you know what?
Right.
But it was, if you're failing, rather than say you failed, which has repercussions, mentally repercussions, what about a grade of not yet? Which then puts the onus on the teacher, the coach, the student, and the athlete. We're not there yet. I'm not going to fail you. No, we're going to work on it till you get it. And you're going to get, now you get the opportunity to learn even more, because now we're going to delve into it and we're going to experience it. And you see it as an opportunity. These are little tricks that you can use that I think if you go in with the right mindset, we've ruined the mindset of people in sports because it's so competitive. Sure. But sports are competitive. So how do I prepare a kid to be competitive in life and resilient in life, and still and toughen them up? You want to toughen them up because it's not a bunch of it's not all candy canes in life, but it's more about how do I get through life succeeding and feeling good about myself, having self-worth, self-confidence, and not questioning myself. And I think that's where the inner game comes in. That's why I use it so much, because it is really an empowering thing to give to a young athlete and let them grow with it and develop with it.
So let's pass along. Let's be like, since we set the intention for parents, like obviously one of the things that we've already communicated already is that ride home has to start looking different. And please let the ride to the sporting event change too.
True.
So
True.
My advice to parents always is, like, if they start talking about the thing, then it's a green light for you to start talking about the thing. But generally speaking, when the event is over, it's kind of like, well, what do you want to do next? What other information are you passing along to parents to give them some good tools so that they can replace something old with something new?
Well, I think it's more or less a parent should, the first thing to do is stop before you say anything. It's like, come on. That kid, you don't know what he's going through. He or she's going through. If they've lost, they've taken it personally. They don't, and then most of the time the kid doesn't care. Let's be honest. They want to know
what the snack is.
Yeah, they want to know where we're getting ice cream. When's my friend coming over? Can I have a sleepover tonight? And then talk about something else. Talk about a movie you just watched. Talk about your favorite whatever. But try to divert attention. Disassociate from what just happened, because it's not that important. It's more important to you, the parent, which it shouldn't be. And I think it's doing a self-look at your, taking some interest, being more self-analyzing and saying, this is really about me, the kid. I'm the one that's bruised by this experience, which is ridiculous. I didn't play. I make it a positive and just really think before you talk, and make it change the subject, because that's what that kid wants. They don't want to talk about it. They don't want to be analyzed. They don't want to be at a press conference after their game saying, how could you have done that? How did you lose that game? How did, what are we going to do next? How are we going to improve? That's the last thing they want to talk about. And it drives them away from the sport, because they don't want to think about it. So you divert their attention and you talk about something else that is enjoyable to them. And you and the parent are just going to have to suck it up and not talk about it. I mean, I think that's
because, like you said, it's not that important.
No, it's not. And it's more important not to do it if you want to develop the kid. You want the kid to become a good athlete. Good coaches divert the attention. They're like, okay, that was good. We're going to change it up totally at practice next week. We're going to make it fun. We're going to do it. It's what great coaches do. This is the other missing element in sport: creativity.
Yes, sir.
We have created robots out there. I've had college coaches, top-ranked college coaches, tell me that these kids come to their programs and they sit there at first practice and they don't know what to do unless they're told what to do. So I've had very good coaches say, well, I'm not going to tell you what to do. You figure it out. He goes, your assignment today, there was a lacrosse coach, very high-level lacrosse coach in the women's game. She would throw out the sticks and she'd say, get rid of your sticks. We're going to get rid of the goals, and here's a Frisbee or several Frisbees. Now go out there and make up your own game. I'm going to watch you. I'm going to see how much creativity you have. I'm going to see what you got as an athlete, what you can do and how you can think. So it's problem solving, it's creativity, and that's missing in sports. And it's really, that's hurt sports too. It's hurt the athlete. So creativity is huge.
Dude, I love that, man. You just tipped me off. Like, I can't wait. In one of my upcoming hockey practices, I'm going to grab 4 tires, 1 net, 6 cones, and 2 balls. And I'm going to say, all right, guys, you do whatever you want today, but all these things have to get used. And I can't wait to see what they come up with, man. That's so cool.
You'll probably love it. You'll probably love it. There's creativity within athletes that you want to bring out, because they're all dying to bring it out. So
yeah. All right, let's keep talking to coaches. What I like to open up with every single parent meeting that I've ever had in the last 17 years is this sentence. Going, hey guys, welcome. Your student athlete will not be fully developed until they're 26 years old. so we're going to be in development for a really long time. Yeah. And we need to start getting really okay with the process, failing, these types of things. So now I really want to move into the coaching lane. Okay. So tip 1 is creativity. That's fantastic. What else can we say to coaches to encourage them to step into this new system?
When you're coaching them, Okay. Technique is important and fundamentals are important, but it's not all encompassing, right?
Okay.
Introduce them to that, then back off. Then say, go out and try it. I'm going to watch you. Okay. And then the way you address them should be, how did that feel when you did that?
Okay.
Not like, oh my God, you should have kept your left arm straight. You should have done this. You should have done that. No. How did that feel? And then point, if you have a certain thing that you want them to focus on, say, well, what did that feel like on your right side when you did that? And make them communicate back to you what it is and say, maybe you should try, put a little more weight on that foot rather than saying, do it this way, do it that way. And put so much pressure on them. Just ask them, the best way to learn, the best way to perform is to be able to feel it, because they're not going to remember it. The mind body needs to interrelate, and you need to memorize that. So that's when that process starts, and that's when the development process starts, and it can be accelerated by a lot. Once they feel it, they go, because now they understand what you're talking about, rather than you like throwing out all this gook and garbage at them, which they don't understand, right. And they're just like, oh my God, will you just shut up? I just want to play, right? So let them play. And just ask them to focus on a few things and then watch that. It's just a coaching technique, I think, that works.
What do you think about coaches using about 80% less words during a game?
During a game, yes. I see that more in soccer. You don't have the chance to say a lot. Some guys do. They have big booming voices and say things. But,
sure.
I think it's the beauty of soccer. You just watch, and you have your time with your team, and then you make certain adjustments. But keep your mouth shut. I mean, really, you're going to overburden them. First of all, they're not listening to you. Hopefully they're not listening to you. And if you think they are listening to you, you're wrong. They're really not. And if it does get through to them, it's coming with attitude. It's coming with, don't embarrass me in front of everybody. Do it with positive things, not negative things. Shout positive things and whisper constructive criticism. But do that at practice. Do it with like, okay, there was a situation in the last game. I just think we need to tweak it. So let's work on that a little bit. I think you did. These are all things to do. Great. Let's tweak the little things that I think you need to work. And then ask them, what do you think we need to tweak? What do you think we need to work on? And make them part of the process. They're the problem solvers. You're not the tell-all expert out there. I don't care how the best coaches don't think they are. They learn from their athletes.
Yeah, so. and most of the coaches at the youth level are, as I say, and I don't mean any disrespect by this statement, but most of them are just well-intentioned parents, and they've never really gone. But they've never gone through any real formal training. No. They've never even watched a sequence of videos about sports psychology. They don't even understand developmentally where children are in the progress game, and if they just even stepped into a little information, I just think they would start making different choices. Yeah,
sometimes a little information is dangerous, but and then I'm going to point that side of it out too.
Let's go.
The guys that watch YouTube videos to help their kids, oh my God, stop. Just stop. You don't know what the hell you're talking about, all right? Have you ever stepped out there and done that? When was the last time you did it? Can you demo it? Okay, if you can demo it and do it perfectly, then okay, you've got it. But I can't. 99.9% of the people that do that can't do a damn thing. Okay, and and kids see through that. They're like, "What the hell are you talking about?" Yeah. So, yes, you're right. You're absolutely right. People need to chill, and they have to approach it in a very different way. You don't know a lot about sports, parents. I'm sorry. How long ago was it that you played? Even if I don't care if you were all-state in high school, how long ago was that?
Yeah,
okay.
Right.
And what was the competition? And what was the competition? A lot of us accomplished it because the competition wasn't so great. There's all kinds of things in sports, right? So you're not as good as you think you are ever, I think. And that's, and you always have to be cognizant of that as you go into it. And then coach, go into it humbly that you don't know everything. And the little things that just do it in a soft way, not in a hard. Don't carry a big stick because it doesn't work with kids. It really doesn't.
So how do you handle discipline within your organizations? Like, what do you do for behavioral issues? Kids screwing around, kids not paying attention. Like, what's your remedy for that?
That's a tough question. That's coaches are coming across that more and more, okay, like teachers are, right? You hear about teachers complaining about students in classrooms now. Coaches are facing the same thing. But the advantage a coach has is that you're not playing. If you do that, you're not going to play. And that brings people to attention real quick.
Amen.
Right? So it's an advantage that coaches has that teachers don't. They're not going to be like, oh, you can't come.
You're not going to learn. Kids like, oh, I'm out.
Yeah, that's cool. I'm moving on. But no, I think in sport, you have to at the worst level I have for coaching, I think you've heard it too. The age level is middle school. I coached lacrosse this past spring, and the kids, they're so entitled. They think they know everything. And you can almost hear the parents' voice coming out of their mouth as they talk. And they give you attitude. And I don't want to do that. I'm not going to run today. I'm like, what? You're going to tell me you're not going to run today? You're not going to want to practice today? I'm like, well, that game is coming up. You're not going to play. If you think you got to put in to get something out, and kids today are coming across as that they control the experience, which, that'd be great if it's done in a healthy, wholesome way, that you're coming into it with some really good, thoughtful experiences that you would like to see it change. But you don't do it in front of the team and tell the coach to go basically screw themselves. And that's what kids are actually doing that. And it happened this year, and I was like, oh, my God. No. I'm like, call the bus off. We're not going to the game. Cancel the bus. And then you see them like, he means it. Mm-hmm. Damn right I mean it. I'm not going to coach a bunch of punks.
Right.
The disrespect that's out there these days, and this is what parents should know, because they don't believe their little sweet little Johnny is doing this. But, oh, yes, he is. He comes and he does that. It's more with boys than girls. And it's just, it's from a coach's perspective. You wonder why coaches don't want to coach? You don't want to get out there and do this? Or why refs are officiating? The whole big thing of officiating, it's a mess. Oh, people don't want to officiate.
That's a separate podcast.
Yeah. And because kids give them attitude, and parents too.
Coaches, I mean, they get it from every single direction. It's awful. It is awful.
It is. And I'd say to coaches, just be confident in what you do, know what you're doing, be very, very no less to know more about it. Be really good at what you know, and don't try to be the expert on everything. Be really good at several things with those kids so that they get better, just like you want those kids to get better. And if you don't know how to do it, just don't admit it. It's more right. Respectful. The kids are going to respect that. Like, I didn't play. Sorry, I don't know how to do that. But let's try to figure it out. What if we tried this? And kids come up and they start to coach too. Developing a team of self-coaches is a wonderful thing if it's done the right way. Because you want them to make their decisions for themselves, and because you can't be out on that field. You talk about coaches yelling during a game. That's right. Like you don't have confidence in your team. They should be problem solvers on their own, not with you having to tell them what to do. Amen. And a really good coach doesn't have to yell. The best coaches don't yell. They sit, they observe, and then they offer little bits and pieces of advice, but not during the game. Okay, if they need an adjustment, they'll do it at halftime. They'll do it in a calm way. And there's also these coaches that get their team so riled up. Like, we're going to kill them. These guys suck. We need to do this. I mean, I hear it. I see it. I'm like, oh, my God.
All the time, man. It's out of control.
My God. Do you know what you just did? You riled them up so much that if anything you've taught them is now out the window because they've forgotten about it. You learn and you perform in calmness, right? The calmness, the blank mind. You want to rather not think about it. Then you go out and perform, because now you will perform pretty well. And that's, again, back to inner game stuff. Just wipe your mind out and just do it, and just enjoy it. Enjoy the rhythm of the game, rather than getting all riled up to do something that is not going to happen anyways. You can't under those circumstances.
Yeah, sure. Well, and listen, if you're a coach and you're hanging out, I'm going to give you one of my favorite tricks. What I'll do in games is I'll design a skill practice, and I won't coach. Instead, what I tell my kids is, you guys are going to be the ones that tell me what you see. And so while I've got 6 kids down below the blue line going back and forth doing their thing, I'll blow the whistle. I turn around to the 6 or 8 guys that are standing behind me. I say, all right, what did you see? What would you guys have done differently in that? What do you like? What do you know what I mean? And I completely step out of it all. In fact, all I do is just kind of validate them and say, oh yeah, it's a good thought. Oh yeah, I didn't see that. That's incredible.
Yeah.
And so that to me is just a good real world application. And a coach could listen to this podcast today. They could go to practice tonight and they could use that. They could absolutely use that.
That's a great suggestion. Yes. You want to embody them with the opportunity to learn, and they don't, and to what you're doing and which I think is awesome is that they don't have to demand things out of their teammates. They could just make suggestions to you, and then you could show them that you're embodying those suggestions. Like, you don't want them to be overly critical of their teammates, because that could cause some bad feelings. It's got to
be positive. Like, this has got to be kind of like black and white things that you did. You know,
but everybody gets that opportunity, right? Everybody gets that opportunity to point out things, and that's awesome. I think that's a great way to turn things around and to really engage the players in the process. Because let's face it, sports is about process. Learning is about process. So
till they're 26, man.
So they're 26.
And then if they haven't figured it out by then, I can't help it. No, there's always room for improvement, which is why you work with not just kids, but you work with elite athletes and stuff too. And so these are folks who have a great fundamental skill set. And now it's between the pipes. It's the inner game that you have to help out with.
Absolutely. Yeah. And it's people don't understand how important that game is, that inner game is. And it has ruined so many people, but it's also accelerated so many others that probably don't have quite the physical ability of some of the great ones, but they put their minds to it, and their mental IQ of a sport, and the way they calm their minds, the way they see it, because they're seeing it in a different lens because they're calm and they're looking at it and they're absorbing it and they're feeling it. It goes a long, long way. So it's exciting. I think it should be exciting for athletes to know that you can do this without all the physical, like, superior skills. But if your mind is there, you can make your body do amazing things.
That's so good, man. Scott, I cannot thank you enough for coming on. I really enjoyed this conversation. And while it could have felt at points like we were poking and jabbing, and we were a little bit, I really hope that people leave feeling inspired, as we said before we pressed the record button, that there's a lot of opportunity for growth here. And don't sit and feel bad about the way you used to do things. Just start changing things tonight, tomorrow, this weekend, and one thing at a time. Just slowly start to get rid of the things that you know aren't serving you and the team, and try to put some new stuff into practice.
It's instantly rewarding when you do it, because you're going to see results immediately, and you're going to feel good about it, because you want progression, right? You want it to progress, and what you just pointed out, that last suggestion, you're going to see immediate results, and I think that's important.
Cool, man. Scott, we'll link to all 3 books in the show notes. If you want to visit him right now, you go to wholechildsports.com and you can connect with him. Thank you again, sir, for being with us.
Thank you very much. Great conversation. Hope to do it again sometime.
Yeah, buddy. There needs to be part 2 on officiating.
Yes.